Yes, it is being recorded. Thank you, Tatiana. Welcome everyone. My name is Ali McLarnon. I'm a worker member of Trademark Belfast. The co-host today is Tatiana O'Hara, who will introduce herself in a second. I'm going to give you a wee bit of background on this tonight's webinar and how we got to be able to present webinars here. Trademark Belfast and Co-operative Alternatives have for this last 6 months been working on education and awareness and trying to get people more aware of what cooperatives are. And in this last 6 months, this is our fourth webinar tonight. Tonight it's on the food co-ops. We've had 3 previous webinars. We have spoke to people from Cooperation Jackson in America. We had the Great Carrick Co-op, and we also had Retrofit and Energy Co-op speaking. So tonight is our last webinar, and you're all very, very welcome. This project is funded by the Department of Economy, and it took a long time for us to work to get to this stage, but we're very grateful for the getting this on so that we can touch people who have never heard of co-ops and educate them, raise awareness, and let them know there is an alternative way to run your business. Tiziana is going to be introducing our 2 key speakers tonight for this webinar. We ask you that you all keep your mute buttons on. The webinar is being recorded and you will all be sent a copy of it once the webinar is over. And if you want to put your camera on, you're more than welcome, but we understand that people like to sit and have their tea without having the camera in their face. So again, you are all very welcome, and I'm going to hand it over to Tatiana O'Hara. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you very much. Thank you, Ali, for this introduction, and thank you for coming, to have dedicated some time to this interesting issue that it's co-ops in food and in farming. So we have 2 exceptional speakers. One is the great Beth Bell, founder members of Carrick Greengrocers. And then we have Barry Ferguson, great as well, from Vista farm. They will tell you their story, and they will tell you their journey in the cooperative development of their enterprise. I wanted to make a little note now that I see my colleague Nora Rohi. She is a student, a PhD student on cooperatives, and she will be observing this webinar. So with your permission, she will take notes and use her observations for her own PhD. So please, if you do not consent to that, make a note on the chat, and Nora will be obliged. If you do, that will be great, because a PhD on cooperatives is what we would like to have at the end of it. Nora, good work. So without any other delay, and I'm a bit kind of surprised. Our list of registered people was much bigger, Ali, but hey, we have the recording to be shown around. Also, the recording of the previous webinars are on our websites, so keep an eye on them. Beth, what can I say about Beth? Well, Beth is, for me, an example of how a group of committed citizens can actually start something and make a revolution in a small village like Carrick Fergus. And this is a very interesting story, how their passion for the place where they lived brought them to create an enterprise where everybody owns a bed. And I think this is the journey. I care about where I live. I own something where I live. And cooperatives allow you to do so. But I can stop now. Beth, to you.
Thanks, Tatiana. It's always nice when Tatiana gives an introduction, shows it's very, very nice about me and Carrick Greengrocers and the work we do. So in a few minutes, I have a slideshow or a slide deck, and it has some nice photographs from Carrick. But before I talk about the Greengrocers, I want to just spend a minute or two and talk about, I suppose, my journey to working with others in Carrickfergus. And my background is in funding. I worked for the lottery for a long time, and worked the thing in that long time that I worked on, the thing that most kind of lit me on fire and woke me up was food system transformation and understanding that if we transform the food system, you can transform nearly all the other systems that we live in and that interact with our lives. And in 2020 and 2021, like very many people had, through that terrible time that we spent in 2020, really had one of those big awakenings of like, what do I want to do with my life? And a job came up in a small UK charity called the Food Ethics Council, which was a 2-day a week, 1-year contract on less money than I was currently earning. And I saw it, and my heart kind of leapt and also sank, because I thought, I am going to have to turn my life upside down, because that work of dealing with ethics in the food system is what I need to do now. That's where I need to be. So I took that leap. I'm laughing because I have a quote here, which is a quote I saw in the Tate Modern around about that time, which is, he looked into the hole, and like any hole, it said jump. And I've written it for myself, and I've made the he a she. And that's sat there every day for 6 years, just reminding me that sometimes you just have to jump. And I'm kind of giving you this information because I think it's relevant to why I work the way I do, and why we in Carrickfergus Greengrocers work the way we do. Round about that time, my good friend Lee Robb, who had started a charity in Carrickfergus called Positive Carrickfergus, was having some conversations through sustainable food places with the council called Kitchen Table Talks, just talking to people about food in Carrick, where they buy their food, where they would want to be able to buy their food. And that charity, Positive Carrickfergus, asked people about their wildest dream for Carrick, and I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. But through those conversations, Lee started to look around for other people who might be interested in going on a journey in Carrick, and she found 8 other people, 7 of whom lived in Carrick, and me, who lives in East Belfast, but is otherwise passionate and interested in the food system and good veg. And I say often that good veg is a human right. So I was the only one of the co-founders who wasn't from Carrickfergus, didn't know Carrick very well, and in fact was probably one of those people who sometimes, as many of us are in Northern Ireland, a bit sniffy about Carrick, or a bit dismissive of it, or some people, not me, I must say, but some people even kind of would ridicule it. And I had people react quite viscerally when I said I was doing work in Carrick, and people being like, oh God, Carrick. And it was really shocking to me, even as somebody who didn't live there and didn't love it as a place that wasn't rooted to it. But I understood that it's a place like anywhere else, with people who live there like anywhere else, who have a right to be able to be able to buy good affordable food in their neighborhood. So those conversations started, and I'm gonna now, I will share my screen now. There we go. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Can you see those slides okay? Yeah, lovely, thank you. So this is our beautiful branding, and I'll come to the story of the branding in a minute as well. So just to say what I'm going to talk about is really like who we are as an organization, what matters to us, a bit about a community benefit society, which is the type of cooperative that we are, and why will that not go away? And then a bit about how we are kind of more than a community project, and lots of people would like to describe us like that. And we're more than a shop, but we are also a shop. I'll say a bit about that in terms of our place in the local economy. And then kind of some things, some other types of funding that we've been able to leverage in and other types of projects. So this lovely photograph here is our original set of co-founders, joined by Tiziana O'Hara, who's had a glow up since then. She had her hair cut and she looks $1 million. Not that you didn't look $1 million then, but look $1 million now with that haircut. And we were that kind of founding group of citizens who came together, not all knowing each other, actually, all of us probably knowing one or two other people, but just coming together with a common interest in doing something, making a difference to the food system in Carrick. And all of us with different, I guess, motivations. Some people were really sad about the decline of the high street in Carrickfergus. Some people wanted to build connection. Some people were interested in the economic side. Some people were, like myself, really frustrated by the lack of good quality routes to market for locally grown, regeneratively or nature-friendly produce. But with the kind of guidance and consistent support of Tiziana over 2 years, it was 2 years before we opened our shop, meeting every 3 weeks, quite low stakes at first. No kind of big commitment. You have to sign here. You have to commit to working in the shop 1 day a week. You have to sign over this or sign over that. It's very low stakes. What might it look like? What are some of our shared values? How do we work through disagreements? And that process. Before I go on to talk about the successes and achievements of the Greengrocers, which was after my children, the thing that I'm most proud of, I think it's very important to take a moment and acknowledge the role of Tiziana and cooperative alternatives in all of these spaces, because you do need that person who's got the knowledge about the different types of governance, but also who can help you with consensus decision making. Also, who can help you whenever you get a bit stuck or whenever the conversation's going round in circles. Though that mentoring is absolutely was transformational, and I will never ever have a conversation about the Greengrocers where I don't talk about that, even though Tiziana would rather that I talked about the Greengrocers. So she's skundered, like, but it's true. So. Yeah, I've said a little bit about Carrick already. Whenever we started to have this, started this process, we didn't know who was growing locally in a nature-friendly way. We knew we didn't want to just use a wholesaler. We wanted to provide a route to market for local people who were growing produce. And as it happened, literally at the same time as we were having this conversation, this man, Chris Dobbs, you can see the photograph, had family land in Carrick, had lived away for a decade or longer, had lived in New Zealand, learned about organic and regenerative growing, and wanted to come back here and try to start a market garden on like less than half an acre, which is the land that he had available. And it's just complete serendipity that these two things happened at the same time. And I don't know if we heard about him or he heard about us, but somehow connection was made. And Chris then kind of joined us on our journey of helping us to think about what are we gonna supply? What does our margin need to be? He helped us actually come up with our kind of slogan or our strapline on our sign, which is community owned and locally grown. Chris coined that one day, and we all just went, yes, that's it. And then when I mentioned earlier these Wildest Dreams postcards that Positive Carrick Fergus did, I always kind of talk about this, and people, there's a bit of, when I say people laugh, they're not laughing at Carrick, but there's a wee bit of kind of, people are a bit bemused, I think, because a lot of people said in those, whenever they returned those postcards, which they had the opportunity to say, what's your wildest dream for Carrick? Lots of people said a greengrocer. Like, and that's not a very wild dream, really. Well, and it's not a wild dream if you live in a place with a greengrocer. But actually, in a place like Carrick, where the greengrocer had closed 15 years earlier, that's surrounded by 5 supermarkets within a kilometre or less than a kilometre of Carrick town centre, 5 supermarkets, and an Iceland, and now recently a B&M or a Home Bargains, but nowhere to buy good quality, nutrient-rich, locally grown veg. Except for those kind of farm shops on the hinterlands that you need a car to get to. So that kind of convergence of these things led us to this collective coming together and making the decision that a greengrocer was the thing. We talked about, like, should it be a once a week market, a market stall? Should it be a pop-up? Do we want to try something? Like, what is it? Is it a mobile? Is it a VAP? Like, and actually we decided a bricks and mortar shop in the town centre, because that is kind of creating other footfall into the town centre. It will have other benefits for other businesses in the town centre, and it enables us to tell a different story about the role of a cooperative in a declining high street, and how one cooperative, hopefully over years, leads to another cooperative. And what that does to the funding mix in a place. If you've got a high street or a town centre that is very dilapidated with lots of empty shops, it's really not realistic now to say, yes, we need to fill this with 20 thriving private businesses. That time is gone. But if you can say, of those 20 units, 5 of them are going to be part of the cooperative economy, 5 of them are making money that's going back into the business, that are not having to support a single trader, somebody's mortgage, are paying a real living wage to their staff, are working with volunteers and providing really meaningful opportunities, and have got these relationships with suppliers. That suddenly means that kind of declining town centre, with a fair wind and a lot of work, might have a chance. You might be able to make a difference in a place like Carrick, and that's why that's a really important part of our story as well. So when I say we're a shop, we're not just a shop, but also that kind of goes both ways, and people kind of want to talk about us as a community project, because that's the kind of language and the kind of understanding that people have, that it's a community project. It's not like it's a kind of a nice to have over there. It's not like, this is not like real, like, kind of business talk. When we dispute that, that's why we talk about it a lot in terms of the economy and that intervention in the economy. In our first year, our turnover was £96,000, and that feels enormous to us. That might not feel enormous to you, but when I tell you that our average basket spend was like £7.60, that's a lot of people coming into the shop. That's a lot of transactions. That's a lot of people getting the bus into Carrick, walking down from where they lived, driving in and parking, whatever it is. That's a lot of people in that town centre who wouldn't otherwise have been there. So like that's a I mean, and I'm kind of really conscious of time, and I do have some other stuff I want to tell you, so I'll move on. But like, I think that's kind of gives you a sense of the broadness of what we're trying to do, as well as the specificity of what we're trying to do. And when we talk here about like what matters to us, clearly we are very values driven enterprise. And that working together to agree our common values was a really important part of our development. And I'll give you an example of kind of how Tiziana helped us with this kind of consensus decision making. When we were kind of talking about our values and what they would be and how we wanted the shop to be, somebody said, I think, I would like it to be like quite traditional. And traditional really rubbed me up the wrong way. Do not like that word. And I kind of bristled a bit, and Tiziana noticed and said, okay, let's unpick that a bit. What do you mean? And I was like, what's your concern about traditional? And I said, well, like in Northern Ireland, traditional, I think it's a contentious word and whatever. And the other co-founder said, like, okay, actually, I think I probably mean, a bit like old-fashioned. And again, I could understand what he was getting at, but also there's a kind of, I have a bit of nuance when I think about the term old-fashioned, because I'm thinking about actually, well, not everything in olden times was a good thing. There's a lot of things we've moved away from, and it's a good thing that we have. But then he was able to say, what I'm getting at is the feeling I had when I was going shopping with my mum when I was a little boy, and we would go to the butcher and the greengrocer, and we'd call into the baker. And I remember the chat that she was having, and I remember this is what's come in today. This is what's in season. I'm going to make such a thing. And he was able to tell the story in such a way as I was able to wind my neck in and go, right, okay, I understand. We're not going to use the words traditional or old-fashioned, but I know what you mean. I know what you're feeling. And when we were trying to come up with the name for the greengrocers, like we brainstormed all those different terms, like, should we call it fresh? Shall we call it nourish? What will we call it? Will we call it like, the greens? I can't even remember all the different things we come up with. And then the day we sat with Chris Dobbs, that market gardener, who said community owned, locally grown, and then somebody said it's Carrick Greengrocers. And once somebody said the words Carrick Greengrocers, that was it. So it, that process and doing that together and figuring out the color scheme together and working with the guy who did our website design and who did that beautiful logo. This logo was designed by a local man, Ian McKenzie, who recently has joined our board and now is a member of Carrick Greengrocers, and he's joined the board. Like we could have paid some design agency thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds for that, but it would not be of us. It wouldn't feel right. This felt like us, and it still does, 3 years later. So I'll say just a little bit about kind of how the sort of cooperative that we are as a community benefit society, which is enabled us to do a community share offer, which means that we raised our kind of startup capital and our finance through community investment, through going out to people in the community and saying this is not a share in terms of that kind of financial instrument that you might be familiar with, but here's what a community share offer is. And we did that through, we wrote a business plan, which we wrote ourselves. We didn't have consultants do that. And with Tiziana's help, we wrote our community share offer document. And I was looking at it. You can find both those things on our website. Tiziana, I'll maybe drop that in the chat. You can drop the website in the chat, Tiziana, in a wee minute. We can have those both available for people who are interested in a business like ours or an initiative like ours. like use them, steal from them, be inspired by them. That's why they're there. And to kind of publicize the community share offer, we're both kind of publicizing that it exists, but also like what it is. And we did that by public events in the town hall, in the library, in places in and around Carrick, as well as people having individual conversations. So we wanted to be like putting ourselves in front of people, understanding that like trust is like relational. You have to build trust with people. So as well as that being like a kind of an awareness raising thing about the greengrocers, and that this, if we raise the money, we'd be opening a greengrocers, it's also about like, this is us as individuals and we care about this. And you can see that we care about this because we're standing up in front of you talking about it, and we're eyeball to eyeball. That was very, very important. So we had the share offer open for 8 weeks in summer 2023, and we raised £34,000 from 434 members. And I administered the share offer. I ran that spreadsheet. I every day, emails coming in, registrations coming in, the Google form, all the different things, people sending us checks, people giving us cash. The kind of groundswell of support was so profoundly moving, as well as being an absolute nightmare to manage on a spreadsheet. I'm only just getting over it now. But of those 434 members, 70% in and around, if not more, are from Carrick, Whitehead, Jordanstown, Green Island, people in the vicinity. Then there are another probably 20% from the rest of Northern Ireland. And then we have some, like what I think of as like solidarity members, people, one person in New York, people in Denmark, people in England, people in Scotland and Wales, who heard about us and wanted to support it, even though they'd never benefit from it directly. They're never going to be able, unless they come on holiday, but like they're not going to be coming doing their weekly shopping. But they wanted to support it because they believed in the idea. So that solidarity thing is really important. And like I have got people who, like in my work network and in the Food Ethics Council, who bought a share, who are like some of the most interested, curious people about the greengrocers. They really feel connected to it, even though they've never been. That's really moving as well. So there's telling your story in different places, not just kind of to your own kind of locality, although that's the most important thing. So we closed the share offer. We made £34,000 thereabouts. We had kind of two amounts or three amounts. Like our £25,000 was our minimum that we needed to make. £40,000 then was like, if we make £40,000, like we'll be laughing. We'll be able to kind of get the really fancy new fridges and whatever. And if we make £60,000, we can get an e-bike and a whatever. Like I don't know what we were thinking of whenever we came up with those figures, but £34,000 as it happened was plenty to get us open. And we opened the shop. I can't even really believe this, even though I know it's true. We opened the shop within like 4 weeks of the share offer closing. We'd found a location. Once we had the share offer closed and we had access to the funds, we were able to sign the lease. We started, calling on our membership, those people who had invested £25 or £50 or £100, and saying like, anybody got any paint in the garage? We need to paint this floor. Anybody handy with a drill? We need to put some shelves up. And so many people contributed in big and small ways to help us get that shop open. And the shop opened on the 23rd. No, is it the 20th? Anyway, the shop opened some date in mid to late July. It's a blur. in 2023, and we were queued down the street. We were on BBC News. It was incredible. It's a symbol of people's ability to kind of to trust each other and to believe in each other and to get shit done, frankly. And it still is, because we're still going. And yeah, I've talked there about this kind of our role in the local economy. What I want to say to that, as well as kind of being values based and paying a living wage, and like our relationship with our suppliers is very important. We pay them what they ask us for. We trust them to not be trying to get the ore in, because they know that we're a really small, kind of quite fragile business ourselves. And for lots of them, we are their one route to market. They're not selling in lots of different places. They just sell through us. Lots of them do sell in other places. That's great. But it means for people like Chris Dobbs or other kind of small to medium-sized growers who don't want to be going to market themselves, who don't want to do a Saturday market and take their produce directly, they've got a route to market in a town centre. And that's a part of our story as well. So we are contributing to the economy through these kind of supplier relationships. And we've got something like 37 different local suppliers over the past couple of years. And that's really important as well. And that's why whenever kind of people are a bit like, oh, you're a wee community project, I'm like, hang on, I won't have it, Then just kind of lastly, because Tatiana's laughing, I could talk about this all night. Leveraging other money then into the greengrocer to enable us to kind of broaden what we do. A kind of key challenge for us is that kind of affordability thing. So organic food, or organically grown or regeneratively grown food that is, with no chemicals, minimal tillage, minimal dig. So it's really high nutrient. It's contributing to soil quality for future generations. There's a perception, sometimes a fair perception, that it is more expensive. And in some cases it is. In some cases, actually, we price check and we're cheaper than Tesco's. But nonetheless, in some cases it is more expensive. But it's more expensive due to the false economy of supermarkets reducing the price of their produce, not treating their farmers and growers fairly, and really distorting the market. But nonetheless, everybody, I said at the start, good veg is a human right. Everybody should be able to afford this stuff. And there are some ways that we need to kind of support the system and subsidize the system to make that the case. So the Friendly Food Club, which was funded by Bridging the Gap and an organisation called Sustain, allowed us to provide that locally grown produce at 50% cost for people on low incomes. And that, whenever I say that, like there was no referrals, you didn't have to do there was no means testing. It was like, you want to join the Friendly Food Club, you're in. There's kind of very careful about that, like who's entitled to this, that sort of stuff. We're really careful about that. And then this we're very proud of as well, the Northern Ireland Food Strategy Framework, which is DAERA, government department, their kind of attempt to set out a strategy for the future food system in Northern Ireland. They recognised us as a kind of an exemplar, if you like, or the type of business, the type of shop that we need much more of to get to that fairer food future. And they launched the strategy from our shop in November 24. Yeah, I think might have been. Yeah, it was 24. And that's us there with some of our suppliers. I suppose I'll just finish by saying it's I'm going to stop sharing so you can see my face. It's like, I can't say it's easy. None of it's easy. It's a slog. but it's also a profound joy. And I think that like almost anything worth doing is both of those things. If it's too easy, like there's no crack if it's too easy. We're still going. We're going to be 3 in July. It's really hard work. It's enormously rewarding. If you have any notion of wanting to do something similar, I would just say like believe that change is possible. Believe that and that you can contribute to it. Everybody can contribute something. And where Tiziana talked earlier about the revolution, I always like to talk about there's an amazing Ursula Le Guin quote, which is that you cannot buy the revolution. You cannot make the revolution. The revolution is in yourself or it is nowhere. And so that journey that I went on of leaving a kind of very secure hierarchical job to kind of jump, that was the revolution in me of realizing that like I can make a difference. And through Carrick Greengrocers, I'm really proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that there was an extremely personal account of your journey, Beth, but also it opened up the real kind of possibility of what a group of people can do, really. And I thank you for sharing all that. So, do we have any questions from the floor? I can start if you want, if you don't mind, just because, Beth, I always learn something new. Of course, I was involved just at the beginning, but then, this had their own life. And I'm actually, congratulations about some of the achievement and the numbers. So, like I like numbers. So 37 suppliers. Can you tell us a bit more how you choose the supplier, what characteristics the supplier needs to have? And yeah, in general, is there a lot of decision making that your collective is taking every time, when you choose somebody new to add to your shop?
So I suppose there's kind of there's a few different categories, and I'll talk first of all about kind of produce, so like fresh produce, fruit and veg. So we do use a wholesaler, and then we have these kind of direct relationships with a couple of local growers. So Chris Dobbs, as I mentioned, Jubilee Farm. Over the past couple of years, we've worked with who are another community benefit society in Antrim, and also more recently with Vista Farm. See Barry's on the call, which is great. And that is like basically we want to know like how do you grow? And you get a very good sense just from like the kind of conversations immediately when people say, oh, well, so don't use chemicals. I really like organic principles. I'm not certified because of the cost or for different reasons why we're not certified. But you can see if you come, blah, 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 you can come and see where I grow. And you can get a real feel for people. So some of those conversations are one-to-one or like face-to-face and for those kind of direct ones. With our wholesaler, we made a decision early on that we would use a wholesaler. There's lots of things that you can't get in Northern Ireland. So like citrus fruit, bananas, there's lots of things that you can't grow here and so on. So we use a wholesaler for that. But we try and have a relationship with the wholesaler whereby he understands that we have that kind of hierarchy of where things come from. So like, don't be sending us apples from China. If you can only get apples from China, just don't send us any apples or whatever. And then to the other things, so we have sourdough grown or baked locally by Benchmark. we've been to see where they, we've been to where they bake. We work with them really closely. They've been one of our early suppliers. Small batch kombucha. So the photograph I shared with Dear Minister. Abernethy butter. So some things are like people approach us, we have a conversation, we dig into their story a wee bit, want to know kind of how you make it, what you make it with. Our chutneys from Polly and Archie's and Green Thumb. We know that they're interested sometimes, and if we have got if customers or people from allotments have got gluts of stuff, they're trying to use up stuff. If we've got extra produce, sometimes they'll take it and turn stuff that would have been wasted, they'll turn it into chutneys. Again, it's about people who kind of have that understanding of a kind of circularity and making sure to kind of make the best of food, that you're not kind of wasting food. And then other decisions that we've made are made to keep us feeling like a greengrocer. And we had, I think, in the first year, some people kind of offering us small batch puddings or charcuterie and things like this. And probably those things are probably quite profitable, but actually we felt like we could slip down a road where actually we start to feel like a deli. And there's something very like equitable about a greengrocer. A greengrocer should feel like a greengrocer when you walk in. And why that's important is it should feel like if you're skint, this is still a place for you. You can buy a few potatoes and a few carrots and a few whatever, and you're not going to feel like, oh, this is too fancy for me because look at all that fancy stuff there. And there's a few potatoes and carrots over here. It has to feel like a greengrocer. So there's kind of some things we do stock some nice sweets, but they're like, it's fudge that's like £2 a bag. It's not £5 a bag. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of things that kind of contribute to our margins and help us keep the lights on and are nice gifts. And if tourists come by, they can come in and buy a wee thing from Carrick. That's lovely. But it's the sort of stuff that you might expect to find in a greengrocer for the most part. And like occasionally, like we have like a nice coffee. But again, that is roasted locally. So it's kind of the things that have a connection to place. We're not buying in bulk from England or from somewhere else just to get stuff on the shelves.
Thank you. That was a very exhaustive kind of list. Any other questions? Nora, go for it.
Hello. First, I want to say how impressive it is to see successful co-ops. It's always nice to see how cooperatives are taking off and achieving all this success. So I have two questions. The first question, when you said that you transitioned from a normal operational job to opening Greengrocer or the co-op, what skills helped you that you already had in contributing to the success of the co-op? And what skills you figured out that you need to gain, and how did you gain that to run the co-op, especially that it's a different business structure, it's a different environment. And how did this contribute to the success? Because definitely you had to work really hard to get it into success, especially that it's a different business structure. Also, how did you ensure that everyone in Greengrocer around you had the same vision and had the same goals so you can achieve this success, especially that now it's a democracy. It's not that one person is taking the decision, everyone's following. But now we're like a lot of members and everyone needs to put in the same effort, have the same principles, follow the same cooperative principles, and have the same vision to bring this to the success. So how did this happen, especially that we need to make sure everyone's agreeing it's a democracy and takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort to get this happen.
Sure. I'll actually answer that last one first by saying that there's something about actually, yes, we have to have aligned values, but it's not that everyone has to kind of put the same in. Because you've got 9 individuals of our co-founders and in any collective, and everyone's got a life, right? And we all know that life is full of life and complexity, and sometimes you've got really hard stuff going on, and sometimes, so there's a kind of, that's the strength of doing it with a lot of people, is you can flex, you can be able to do more this month and actually step back because there's someone else who can come in. That's really important. The kind of the democratic stuff is really important as well. And when I said about like consensus decision making, that's really kind of how you make that work. And I think like in my previous job, to talk about kind of skills, I think what I had to learn actually was, I thought I probably needed a whole new set of skills to come and try and be part of this. But actually all the like, and I worked in funding previously, so had a pretty good understanding of spreadsheets, of budgets, and kind of technical stuff like that. But also some of the biggest learning, I think, was stuff like that. Actually, you can learn as you go. The real stuff you need is that kind of democratic relational stuff that allows you to be in a room with 8 other people when you don't always agree, and not strop off whenever somebody says, no, actually really don't like that color scheme, or I really hate that name, or no, I think we should stock whatever the disagreement is. So I'm a bit kind of conscious of, there isn't a list of skills that I as an individual needed. There's a kind of commitment and value and a relational thing that we as a collective needed, and that we as a collective all brought so many different skills from all our different professional and personal and familial and community backgrounds, and other things we needed, we picked up along the way. And so some things, so like we didn't know anything about a community share offer. None of us had done that before, but Tiziana did. So Tiziana could come, for those months where we were doing the community share offer, worked with us a bit more closely than the next 6 months whenever we were talking about branding and our margins and that sort of stuff. Does that make sense? So there's something about like bringing the skills you have, but not ruling yourself out of joining in things because there's a set of skills that you think you need to have.
So you mean
Do you
it's
know
not
what I mean?
more of like the diversity of the background and the skills of the people that made that work towards the success, right?
Yeah, it's a bit that, but it's also a bit I mean that was a big part of it. But I think it's also a bit more kind of trusting that, I think I suppose what I would say about it is like, you don't need to know everything to start. You just need to know how to do the next thing. And I think when we were having those first few meetings of like trying to build trust and relations and relationships and set values and understand where we're coming from, if we'd been thinking then about all the skills we would need to actually open a shop, we would have panicked and broken and fractured and broken apart. But actually we didn't. Tiziana was like, helped us to be like, go slow.
Go
This is the
slow.
next thing you need to figure out. Go slow. So it's kind of what you said, but it's also kind of you actually, even a really great diverse group of people won't know everything, and that's okay because you'll figure it out whenever you need to.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
can I
Oh,
just
so
add too, Beth? You probably found the same, and this is probably help you, Noreen. When you move from a job that has management and bosses and people telling you what to do, and you have your structure in place, so you have to tick all these boxes, and you move from that to a collective and a cooperative where you're the boss and everybody sitting
Mm.
around the table has exactly the same rights as you and the same say in the matter and the same decision making vote, then that has to shift your brain a bit, because We are all brainwashed and trained to always work for the man or the woman and do your week's work and go home for your week's pay and be thankful for it. But when you're an owner, a worker, a member, and part of the whole structure and the whole running of something, that is to me is the hardest thing for some people who have been so brainwashed for decades to think I'm actually the owner. I have a voice here. And it's learning to change that mindset and stop being so under the instruction of others, that you collectively make decisions together. And I think setting up the here, Beth, actually take my hat off to you. It's absolutely fantastic, and I have to take a wee drive to Carrick Fergus to get my
Yes,
greengrocers,
please.
my fresh
Run
fruit
ahead.
and veg. But
Yeah.
it's just, I think, knowing that is the hardest part for some people, is to get that mindset of, do you know what? I have a say here. My voice is valid. I have a vote. This is democracy in action. We are all on the one page here, and we all want the same outcome. So you have to trust, learn, respect, and honor each other, and give each other your voice, and listen to each other. And that's the hardest part for me, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ali, for that. We take another one. Portia, you had your hands up. Please go.
Thank you. Yes. I was going to ask in regards to that 3-year anniversary coming up, what do you see in the next 3 years, I suppose, as to what is going to be your strategic outlook, or what are you going to put in place to make sure that you maintain the momentum of those customers coming in and making that spend? Or, are you going to implement something new? Will you think of another share offer in the future to help secure more members and build up that community? I suppose it's quite a wide question, but I think it's quite interesting maybe to see, has there been much thought around that?
Thanks, Portia. Yeah, I mean, I think what we've really been reflecting on a lot, like over the past 6 months, I think, is any business plan is like finger in the air stuff. You're making it up when you write it. It's an educated guess, but you're still kind of making it up, and we had thought about that we would make our own coleslaw and make our own soups and stews with our kind of stuff that, with our own produce and stuff like this. But it's like, we've got a wee tiny kitchen, there's nowhere to do it. So there's things like that were part of our profitability and, planning that we haven't been able to do. But lots of other kind of ways of bringing in income have emerged, including like Lee, Rob, and I both do different bits of like consultancy work, or webinars. I did, Lee did a webinar with Antidote. I did one with climate copy, carbon copy. God, I forgot the name. That pays for our time, and we contribute that kind of to the greengrocer. So we're kind of bringing in income like that, which bolsters the turnover. I think there is something about opening up the membership. We've got lots of people are in the shop kind of week on week and say, like, can I be a member? How does that work? I suppose, and we talked to Tatiana about, like, there are different mechanisms of doing that, one of which is like just that you kind of have an ongoing open membership offer rather than kind of a defined 6-week share offer or something like this. So we're kind of considering that. I think the other thing to be really honest about is, like, we haven't broken even yet. We've had 2 financial year ends, and we haven't broken even yet. But we've had that money from the share offer to kind of to keep things to fill that shortfall. But that can't go on forever. The bridging the gap funding.
Can I say?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. No, thank you. No, Beth, just I'm concerned a bit about the time, and
I know
this
you're
is a
very sweet.
yeah, yeah. No,
Tatiana
no,
knows
no. Thank
I
you.
have to go
And
at
now,
7, but
because I know
it's a
that
really
Barry
good.
talks even more than you, Beth. I'm concerned that we are not going home tonight. So,
Okay.
can
But
I
Portia,
say,
thank you. It's a
yeah,
really good question, and we
yeah.
are thinking about it.
Absolutely. And Portia can actually, really have this conversation a bit more. There is also a message from Tanya. Tanya is on the call tonight, and she said that she hoped to get up to visit you. So keep an eye for Tanya. She's
Will
coming
do.
to Carrickfergus. But I wanted to bring Barry in, if you don't mind, Beth. This was exceptionally good. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciation
you.
of your
Lovely to see
time.
you all. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. But let's us continue, because cooperatives have a kind of an enormous use in the transformation of the economy that we want today. And Barry maybe is an exemplar of that. From a traditional farming background where his family owned quite a lot of land, Barry is bringing the transformative idea of a cooperative to change the ownership model so that the farm can continue not only for his generation, but for his future generation. So cooperative as a transformative tool in farming when succession is an issue. So let us hear this interesting story from Barry. Barry, to you.
Thanks, Tiziana. So I'll just try and... Yes. So I'll try and I've got too many slides, so I know I don't want to talk for hours and hours, but I'll do my best. So I just wanted to give a bit of a story of a background, because we're sort of the other end of the spectrum of things in some ways from Carrick Greengrocers, which was from people in a community wanting to come together to do something. This starts with a personal story, but really what we're trying to do on the farm is to build something very different to the norm, to deal with a lot of the challenges that are facing the food and the farming system in Northern Ireland, well, generally across Western Europe. Um, the title of the slideshow was Growing an Organic Community Farm. I need to be really clear at the start that we are not certified organic, although we're just about to go into conversion. So just in case anybody thinks I'm pretending to have accreditation that we don't have, we do grow to organic principles. We don't use chemical sprays and so on. So I grew up on this farm. We're just the other side of Belfast from Carrick Greengrocers, between Dundonald and Newtownards. And I left Northern Ireland when the Troubles were just coming towards an end, and went off to travel the world and do my studies and escape from the farm, which was not a very profitable enterprise, not a glamorous thing, and had lots of challenges. So I spent more than 20 years away from Northern Ireland, mainly in Madagascar, but also doing studies in England, and travelled elsewhere. So my departure from the farm really led me to realize a lot of values that would be quite different from what a farm would have in Northern Ireland. So a lot of orientation around the community. So a little bit of background around the farm. You've got a picture of my great grandfather there, and a picture of my two kids on the right hand side. So we're well located for a farm going into direct selling, but historically the ancestors were a mixed farm. They had everything, pretty much everything you could do going. And we're not from kind of landed gentry who kicked the natives off the land. We come from, my ancestors were tenants to the family, the Lord Londonderry, from Mount Stewart Estate down near Grey Abbey, and they worked for 50 years to pay off the farm. And then really the farm went out of our use, and it was sort of landlordism. We kept a little bit of involvement. There was always a field or two with horses, a vegetable patch, and some potatoes. But really, we were trapped in the kind of gentleman farmer syndrome. But the farm was held in the family. So we basically faced with this challenge. Dad is on the left there. He's still around. He's just somewhere else in the house at the moment. And there's my son. And how do you balance a respect for, I mean, 150 years almost of connection to this land and extremely hard work in, first of all, buying the farm, but then also not having it taxed or, taken away from you. How do you balance that with the needs of the next generation? So you're not just like, say, oh, I'm going to give it away to the community. And also with how you can make a living from it in the here and now. So that's a picture of the farm from the air. That's the road running through the bottom is the dual carriageway that runs from Belfast to Newtownards. So we're just about 7 miles from Belfast City Hall. So we're really close to a big concentration of population in Northern Ireland, including quite a lot of well-to-do people, but also plenty of working class communities and housing estates. So I came back to the farm with my kids 4 years ago and was really looking around like, what can you do on the farm? We all have our own values. We all have our own skills. And basically, with a lot of soul searching and a lot of looking around, trying to work out what you can do, what would be viable to actually make a living from, and what would be resilient so that our family, so that the next generation can stay associated with the farm. And a lot of the 20 years that I spent away in Madagascar, I was working in community development. So one of the core kind of ideas that our values that I had was it had to be community oriented. So I went away to a whole bunch of farm walks and visits. You've actually got, I know we've got two people from who've got a strong attachment to Jubilee Farm in up in Larne. And there's a photograph there. That was one of the farm walks we went to. I sought advice from a whole range of people, including Tiziana, who was Co-operative Alternatives, was running a program on community farming, and I got some quite detailed advice from a similar organization over in England called Shared Assets. And basically came up with several sources of inspiration from places across these islands, from the south, from England, Scotland, and Wales, about how to do things. So the three core ideas we had, we wanted to do something community based with cooperative principles, not based on agribusiness producing an anonymous commodity going into a market. We wanted to do something around food. So it was kind of a commitment to producing food for our local community. And we had to have, at some point, it was going to actually produce a livelihood. So deriving a living for me and maybe in the future for my kids. So those are kind of the key values. I also had to work out, so the producing food, one of the big sustainability challenges we have in the world is that human society eats way too much meat and has way too much of its food produced from livestock. That's not sustainable. It's causing a lot of emissions. So really got back to the idea of growing local vegetables. And I was really happy to be able to start supplying Carrick Greengrocers a few weeks ago, when we had a surplus and they had a need. So I had to start from scratch to grow vegetables. Although I came from the farm, I hadn't had a huge involvement in growing vegetables. I helped my grandmother moving weeds around when she was weeding in the veg patch as a tiny child, but it wasn't really something I'd trained in. So me and the kids basically got to it in 2022, and started trying to grow veg, sowing seeds in the field. And the picture on the bottom left there is the autumn of 2022. That's the foundation. The concrete in the foreground is the foundation of the what's now the greenhouse where we do some of the propagation. And that was just veg boxes that we were able to put together as novice veg growers to give out to some neighbours. And actually, a benefit we had at that stage was from one of the things that happened in COVID, I'm sure for many of you, was street WhatsApp groups getting established, and people looking for solidarity and ways to communicate with each other when they were having to social distance. So we were able to use a couple of the WhatsApp groups for the roads just around the farm to get the message out there. We're trying to start a veg box scheme. Would anybody like a free sample box to see what we're doing, and basically to open the conversation? So we basically started by giving the veg away in 2022. The farm is 9 fields, and I've just taken charge of 2 fields. So we have a huge expansion potential. And that's a view from above. You can see there's a wind turbine over in the background, and that's the field where I'm growing currently. So where does the cooperative come into all of this? So we aren't yet constituted as a cooperative, but the cooperative values are very central to what we're trying to do. And we needed to identify some stepping stones towards being able to become a cooperative, because unlike Carrick Greengrocers, this was not a community coming together who wanted to do something in their space. This is a farmer-led initiative for which the end point is a cooperative. So the end objective of all of this exercise is community ownership of the farm and the production of the food being done by a workers' cooperative. But you can't just put an ad in the paper and have, you probably need 500 families buying the food, and you need maybe 20 workers in a cooperative to come together to do that production. You can't put an ad in the paper and all those people magically appear. You've got to do something to draw the people to the farm. So really, the production of the food is what we're doing currently to try to draw people to the farm. And there's a model which exists all around the world, not especially common in Northern Ireland. I know Jubilee Farm are one of them, and there's another one over in Saintfield called Laurelbank Farm. But CSA, or Community Supported Agriculture, is a way to do that as a stepping stone. So it's basically a weekly subscription veg box where the members agree to share the risk and reward of the food production. So we have currently 49 members to the CSA, and they commit for the season to getting a veg box and contributing to the costs of that, not knowing exactly what they're going to get in their box. And the CSA also offers opportunities for volunteering. We have more than half of the members of the CSA have been with their families and have helped with bed preparation, weeding, planting, sowing seeds, harvesting, and also and running events as well. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do. So we are approaching the point where we are going to form our first constituted cooperative. Now, the aim is for that to happen this year, to form a community interest company in order to do projects where we can do more educational community outreach and social farming type activities. And I suppose one of the reasons why for a privately owned farm that is of interest is that you can get access to funding to do the things that you don't really want. We don't really want to run community events and charge people to come to them. We'd really like to be able to put on events, have somebody who gets paid to do them, but they're open to everybody and they're really accessible and they're really promoting diversity. So I have a couple of slides just to give you a picture of what the growing system is. I'm not going to dwell on it for ages, but we've started really, the rest of the farm has been managed in conventional agriculture, so that uses chemical fertilizer and sprays. But the 2 fields that I've taken on completely use organic principles. So we don't use any synthetic chemicals. We don't use genetically modified feed for the chickens. We use organic seeds. We try to use some of the regenerative principles where we're not plowing everything up excessively. The small field where I grow currently is in a no-dig system. And the second field will be a tillage system, but it's using natural fertility. So using sustainably sourced composts and clover and other green manure, plant-based leys for generating the fertility. So that was a picture before we started. So it was a grass field it was in grass for over 50 years. So there were horses grazed in there and stuff. And then that's my father on our tractor. We're not a big wealthy farm. There is a big house, but it's a 70-year-old Massey Ferguson 35 tractor. And we ploughed up the field, and that's a picture from July last year. So we went from a grass field to a field full of laying hens and many, many, many thousands of plants. We have a couple of polytunnels. And we were able to feed almost 50 families just from this field. Yeah, just a couple of other pictures. Sustainable compost is one thing we're using. This comes from the green waste. So what gardeners and tree surgeons and people working on landscape and the park department from the city council would put all their green waste into a specific composting company who produce this very fertile compost that we can add to the ground to give the fertility for growing our vegetables, and that's what it looks like when the vegetables are flourishing. Yeah, so I'm not going to go through all of the numbers, just to say we are very diversified, almost 150 varieties of over 40 kinds of vegetables and fruit. And we don't run all year round because it's extremely complicated to do all of the storage and growing things to get right through the winter period. So we run basically from July for as long as we can. And I actually did some deliveries last week, but we'll be going on a pause of the veg delivery for the next 4 months until the start of the summer when things pick up again. Eventually, the goal is to become a year-round veg scheme, which would be supplying 500 families all year round, and everything coming from the farm where possible. Really, thinking about resilience in the face of all of the uncertainties we have with geopolitics, with climate change, with all of the supply chains being very vulnerable and all of those sorts of things. So trying to draw people in to get food that they trust, that they can see, that they can know the people who are producing it and be right close up to it. So I have just a couple of pictures to go through quickly so you can see what does the veg box that our members actually get look like. So this is just a couple of samples of last year's boxes. So we have large shares and small shares. We had been doing every Friday was harvest and delivery day. For 2026, we're going to try and grow a bit, and we'll be moving into two harvests and 2 deliveries a week. It'll be Wednesdays and Saturdays from July 2026 onwards, just so that it's easier to manage with the scale that we're working at. So yes, very colourful. We generally basically try to have something leafy and green, something hard root vegetable, something flavoursome. We try to have some of our staples in there, things like tomatoes and carrots and onions. And we always try to have things. You're seeing some weird and wonderful looking veg here. I bet you've never seen black radishes or a purple kohlrabi or a paddy pan squash on the shelves of Tesco's or Iceland or whatever, wherever the supermarket is in your area. So we really try to have kind of a range of stuff, and it changes. It's never the same 2 weeks in a row. And if we don't have enough of something, so you've got some really popular things. So early in the season, when the green beans or the tomatoes start, you maybe don't have enough for everybody. So maybe half the members get it in week 1 and half get it in the next week. And then when you're in full production, everybody will get something from the share, and you make sure it's kind of shared out in a fair way. And the members come from Grey Abbey, Bangor, Malile, right to the Lagan. So we have several members up in the kind of Ormeau Road, Stranmillis area of Belfast.
Couple of minutes, Barry. Just a couple of minutes, and then
okay.
and then
yeah. That's good. So yeah, about a third collect from the farm, and 2/3 are getting deliveries. So I suppose the key thing to move on to now is kind of where we are as a business, because we are trying to have money coming in to draw a living from it, which hasn't happened yet. and then where we relate to cooperative values, because we are going to constitute as a cooperative, and the long-term goal is to become a community-owned, cooperative-run farm. So we started from a very small investment, under 20,000, and for the first 3 years, we have reinvested 100% of the takings to reinvest, increase the infrastructure, and pay for the inputs for the next year. There is significant growth potential if we can work out how to finance it and how to build it, because the farm is about 70 acres in size. We're currently only using 4 out of those 70 acres. And fortunately, we haven't had to use a big marketing budget. It's very, about £50 for printing some leaflets and really taking advantage of word of mouth. That's just some of the numbers. So the blue bar is the number of boxes that we've had across our different season, number of members. The orange is the number of weeks that we've been going for, and then the yellow is the amount, basically the turnover that we've had for reinvesting. So we've been growing very significantly, and we're going to try and double most of those factors, maybe not the number of weeks of supply next year. So I suppose because I don't want to be a fraud in all of this, we're talking about cooperatives, and we're not constituted to cooperatives. I did 2 slides. My 2 final slides are the analysis of how what we're doing already fits with the cooperative principles and the cooperative values. And then obviously when we take steps forward to the next level, we'll be able to achieve all of those and have a green light. So looking at the 7 principles of cooperatives, we aren't yet member owned and we aren't yet democratic. But we do actually have a green light on all of the other things about members financially contributing, being independent, offering education. We actually have families who come every Tuesday who home educate their children. We cooperated with the other cooperatives in the area. I'm a member of Carrick Greengrocers and I go to the AGM and supply them. And I'm a member of Hollywood Co-Farm and go to the AGM, and we collaborate on events. And we very much support our local community. We donate produce to local food bank and are engaged with the community in other ways. In terms of the cooperative values, we're slightly less advanced because some of those are more challenging to do when it's a private individual-led initiative. But just to show you, we're good on the caring for others. We do have some members who would maybe not be in such privileged positions. So there are some people get free boxes, don't have to pay at all. And we have a lot of openness with our members about what we're doing. So if anybody is interested in conversation more about these, so we don't run out of time tonight, I'll just finish with a quick series of photographs that I don't even need to talk to about some of the community events that we have on the farm. So there's a talk. We have community potluck and community pizza days where we all come together. We've had courses on the farm. We've had yoga and fermenting workshops, and yeah, all sorts of interesting things. And we're embedded in kind of the movement that we're working in, and we are trying to look at the possibility for cooperation with other growers across Greater Belfast and Northern Ireland, thinking about are there cooperative solutions to marketing everybody's produce together. So I guess since I've been given the sign that we're getting low on time, I'll finish there and open it up to questions.
Yeah, and Barry, the first question, fantastic. The first question is, tell again, where is the farm?
We're between Belfast and Newton Ards, so we're on the Ballyrogan Road.
Do you have a website or do you have
we're on Facebook? We're on Facebook. I'll put the information in the chat in a second.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you. And let us open it to question. You can stop sharing and we can see if there are any other questions. Anybody?
I don't have a question, Tatiana. I just want to say, Barry, well done. That is a fantastic initiative that you've started with your family and to open it up to all members of the community. looking at your scale, growing from like 10 boxes to like feeding 50 families, that is just a start. Your dream will become a reality, and you're only using a small percentage of the land you have available, and you're seeing the growth going. And I think you already touched on it about the way the world is, and we're importing so much food and so much stuff full of chemicals, and the way the world is right now with charges and taxes and things. Community wealth building begins within the community. And if you're going to build an organic farm and have other people join you, I don't see it as a failure. I see it as it's going to be a great success. And I take my hat off to you. Well done.
There
Thanks
is
very much.
something very interesting about here in the chat. Somebody is asking, how do you go about becoming a member? That somebody is Gillian. Gillian, are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, ask directly.
Oh, hi there.
Hi,
Hi,
Gillian.
sorry, I just tuned in late there, so I'm just picking up, but I'll check out the website. I'll check out your Facebook page anyway and see. But
Yeah,
the,
send me a WhatsApp or an
yeah,
email, and you can come and visit, and I can send you more
yeah,
information. But yeah,
yeah, I'd
it's
love to.
really all
Yeah,
the growth we've had has been word of mouth. We
yeah.
started just with the WhatsApp chats in the local area, and then
Mhm.
people really like the veg. They like getting something that they trust that's harvested that day, and
Mhm.
we haven't had a much of a dropout rate. I mean, people really stick with us.
and tell us a
Mhm.
bit more about these members. So what do you expect from members, and what members bring to you? That's an interesting part, and it's central to cooperatives anyway.
Yeah, so I suppose there's two levels to it. The the member and getting a share of the harvest is about changing the language, because we're not about producing a commodity. We're not about making profit. We're about producing food for our community. So the term member is really recognizing kind of commitment and solidarity rather than
Mhm.
customer.
Yeah.
And then the second part of it is really it's emphasizing involvement. So people are welcome to come to the farm. We have I mean, more than half of our members would come with their families, especially at harvest time or at planting time. You have families from East and South Belfast who have young kids who really want to get their kids to understand where veg can come from. So
Mhm.
the really the farm, we're not an open farm that they can come to any time, but they all we run it all just through a WhatsApp group. So people just, if people want to come, they can come, and we have events every month, where we deliberately put things on that people know that there are community events coming on. So one of our members, his hobby is cooking sourdough pizzas. And he has a mobile pizza oven, so he comes. We have we've other people, yoga teachers and people interested in fermenting foods who've put stuff on. Who, it's their idea that they want to, can they use the farm as a venue? We don't charge for that, but they need to be a member. We have these families who homeschool their kids. And they're like, can we come and volunteer? How much do you charge? I said, we don't charge, but if you come and volunteer, you should be a member who gets a share of the food.
Mhm.
But the membership is technically, we expect people to join for the season. So they're
Mhm.
becoming a member for that season, but we're not signing them into a contract, because we don't really want to we don't want to make it awkward. People can go through difficult times. People lose
Mhm.
jobs. People have, like, family circumstances change. People have different work patterns and so on. So we're
Mhm.
not, we say basically, if you sign up, try it for a couple of weeks and see if you like it. But then we really want you to be committed for the season. But if people's circumstances change, then that we're not holding them over that as like a firm contract. So it's partly about changing the discourse. It's partly about recognizing that we're not a for-profit enterprise. We're doing this to feed the community, but it costs money to do it.
Of course. Yeah.
Thank
Brilliant.
you. I think that was addressed very well, Gillian. What do you think?
Yes,
Yes,
excellent. Yes,
thank
I'll
you.
get on the Facebook page. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
very good, Gillian. We expect you to sign up, and then I don't have any other question except open again to the floor. Any question from the floor? The last one before we close the session. I hope you didn't feel rushed, because Barry's story was equally important to our webinar, as well as the story of Carrick Fergus, greengrocer. And they are both great examples that becoming a cooperative is a journey, guys. It's a journey. And you need to work intentionally towards that. That's the journey that we need, to really raise awareness of the intentionality of doing, preparing, influencing economy and communities in a different way. And those two examples are doing that. They are changing the economic kind of dynamics. They change our community dynamics. And I think this is important. Again, Tanya also said in the chat, Barry, that is coming to visit you. So with that kind of hope and shared experience with you, I think that we can close the session unless... oh, Nora has a question. Nora, you have 1 minute.
Okay, I wanted to ask, can I use your journey and how you went through this farming journey for my research or not? Because I didn't receive any consent yet. I cannot take any of what you said.
Yes, yes. You have my consent to use all of that, and I'd be happy to do a follow-up interview, or you come and visit if you wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, there's loads more stuff to say around we are going, being a member, those are the people who we are going to offer the chance to become part of the committee that constitutes for the community interest company that we hope to form. It's been a wish for a while, and we're not rushing it. I think as Tiziana and as Beth said about Carrick Greengrocers, you got to get it right, because those values and principles, and those are very much on my radar. That's why I had a traffic light thing to say, there's some things we're strong on, there's some things that our next step will take us to, but there's no point in forcing people together into a cooperative prematurely. At the moment, we're doing the sweat collateral investment of producing the veg and providing the opportunities. And that's what's drawing people towards us, because people understand they're no longer customers buying commodities. They're members of a community scheme getting a share, who can get as involved as they want to, and as involved as they are able to.
I'll take the link from the Facebook from the chat, and then I'll go inside and check for the form. Thank you very much.
Not at all.
That's fantastic. We are spot on, 7:30. I think that the last thing that remains to do is to thank you, Barry and Beth, that she had to leave. This was excellent. I hope that you took out from this webinar as much as I personally took out. And we close it here. We will circulate the details also, Barry and Beth. So any additional question, any additional information you want onto this beautiful cooperatives in the making, please do refer directly to them. Anything else? No.
No. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And thank you, Barry. You give me hope.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Thank you, Nora. All good to go? Thank you. Yes, we can hear the recording again, Gillian. Yeah, the session will be distributed. And we will send it to you. Fantastic. Okay. Bye-bye.